Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're exploring the world of aging and happiness.
Oh, yeah.
And to guide us, we have this really interesting book. If you live to 100, you might as well be happy.
Yeah.
It's by this fascinating Korean psychiatrist named Rhee Kun Hoo.
Hmm.
He's had this incredible 50-year career,
Wow.
and he's like this pioneer in mental health in South Korea.
Interesting.
So what we really want to do is kind of extract some practical advice and wisdom, for aging gracefully from his own life and work.
Sounds good.
And we're going to touch on everything from finding joy in simple things to the surprising benefits of knowing less as we get older.
Right.
One of the most powerful things where he talks about is this near-death experience he had at 82.
Oh, wow.
He fell, and he actually thought that was it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, he recovered.
Yeah.
But it really made him aware of his own mortality.
Yeah, I think a lot of people experience something similar as they get older. You start thinking about death more.
Exactly.
When you see friends pass away or your own body starts to change. What's interesting, though, is how he chooses to respond to that fear. A lot of people kind of shut down.
Oh, totally.
Or get anxious, but he doesn't.
He actually uses it as motivation to live each day more fully and to be grateful for the time he has left.
I like that approach.
He compares it to climbing the Himalayas, which he did at 49, the same age his dad passed away.
Wow, so he's really facing those fears head on.
He is, and it's really inspiring.
It is. When we accept that we're not going to live forever, it can actually free us to focus on what's important.
I love that. And speaking of shifting perspectives, Rhee has some really funny stories about how family dynamics change as we age.
Oh, I bet.
Like in one story, he talks about how his grandson drew this family portrait,
Uh-huh.
and Rhee and his wife were completely missing from it.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't even like stick figures in their place. It was the family pets.
That's hilarious.
It's like a visual representation of how our roles change in the family.
Right, like we're not always the center of attention anymore.
But he makes this really good point that close family ties aren't just about constant interaction.
That's true.
It's more about being there for each other when it matters.
Absolutely a safety net.
Yeah. And speaking of family, Rhee also has some great advice on communication.
Oh, that's always a tricky one.
Especially as we get older, he really emphasizes becoming good listeners. And he's this really funny take on why older people tend to ramble a bit.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, me too. He says it's because our brains change as we age. Like it takes us longer to connect the dots in a conversation.
Yeah.
So we go off on these tangents.
It makes sense.
He actually compares it to a tree. When we're young, our conversations are like a strong trunk.
Okay.
Clear and direct. But as we get older, it's more like a tree with lots of branches and fewer leaves.
Oh, I like that visual.
Yeah. So we have all these interesting side stories. But sometimes we lose track of the main point.
Right. We get distracted by the branches.
Yeah. But the key takeaway is to be aware of these changes and adapt our communication style accordingly.
Good point. So like being mindful of how we're talking.
Exactly. Like being concise and really listening to the other person.
Yeah.
He tells this great story about attending academic gatherings as a senior professor.
Okay.
And he would get these subtle hints that it was time for him to leave.
Like what?
Like people saying, oh, you must be tired.
These.
At first, he would resist. He wanted to stay engaged. But eventually, he realized it was important to make a graceful exit.
As the focus shifted to the younger generation.
Exactly. And that kind of speaks to a bigger theme about knowing when to step back and let others take the lead.
It's tough, though, isn't it?
It can be, but it's a valuable skill to learn as we get older.
I agree.
Okay, so now let's talk about parenting. Rhee is really honest about his own experiences.
Oh, good. I like that.
Like how he wanted to be that cool, laid-back dad,
Uh-huh.
but his kids actually felt neglected.
Oh, no. That's a good reminder that our intentions don't always match the outcome.
Right.
But it sounds like he learned from that.
He did, and he says the most important thing is to build a strong bond with your children. And that's based on honesty and being yourself, not trying to be some perfect parent.
So true. No parent is perfect.
That's okay. Our kids are their own people. And we need to embrace that.
I love that message.
Me too. Now, Rhee has this really charming story about his favorite cafe closing down.
Okay.
And he realized he never even learned its name.
Really?
He'd been going there for years.
Wow.
But he was so focused on just enjoying his time there that he never bothered to learn the name.
That's interesting. I guess sometimes we get so caught up in knowing everything that we miss the simple beauty of the experience.
That's exactly what he's saying. It's about knowing less and just being present in the moment.
I like that a lot.
Now, for one of my favorite stories from the book.
Okay.
Rhee runs into his childhood bully, but guess where in a taxi?
Ah, wow. What are the chances?
It's just a small world.
It is. And it really shows how interconnected we all are.
Right, like our actions have
Yeah.
consequences. And you never know when your paths might cross again.
That's a good reminder to treat everyone with respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about money.
Okay.
Rhee believes that as we age, we need to become seasoned bookkeepers.
What does he mean by that?
He means being mindful of our spending and embracing a simpler lifestyle so we can be free from financial anxieties.
Hmm.
He admits that when he was younger, he wasn't always careful with money.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Right. But he learned over time that true freedom comes from
Hmm.
understanding your needs and being content with less.
So true. You don't need a lot of stuff to be happy.
Exactly. And he even talks about wanting to declutter his room and live more minimally like a monk.
Makes sense. The older you get, the less you need.
Now, for anyone thinking about retirement or already enjoying it, Rhee has some really inspiring words.
Oh, I bet.
He says retirement isn't just the rest of your life.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's a chance to pursue new passions and make a difference.
Like a second journey.
Yes. And he actually lives by this.
Hmm.
He opened a clinic after retiring, founded the Family Academia Foundation, and even graduated top of his class from a cultural studies program at 76.
Wow, amazing.
Talk about lifelong learning.
Really inspiring.
He even talks about shaping how we experience life's milestones. Like for his 80th birthday, instead of one big party, he spread the celebration out over a year.
That's cool.
Yeah. He wanted to have meaningful encounters with loved ones throughout the year.
I love that.
It's about being intentional and finding joy in everyday moments.
Sounds like a great way to live.
It is. And it's a good reminder that we have the power to create our own happiness.
Absolutely. We're not just passive bystanders in our own lives.
And that's a great note to end on for this first part of our deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore more of Rhee's insights on aging and happiness.
Looking forward to it. It's so refreshing how he embraces aging.
Right. Like it's not a burden.
Yeah, it's a privilege to grow old.
And he has this really interesting perspective about how as we get older,
Yeah.
we're like in this front row seat to witness societal transformations.
That's a cool way to look at it.
He's seen Korea go through so much change in his lifetime, from poverty to war to becoming a global power.
Wow, that's a lot of history.
It is, and I think that gives older generations this unique perspective
Yeah.
that we can learn from.
Absolutely.
He also has some really insightful thoughts on the generation gap.
Oh, that's a hot topic these days.
Yeah, but he doesn't see it as a negative thing. He thinks it's an opportunity for growth and learning.
I like that perspective.
Yeah, like each generation has something to offer.
Hmm.
And we can learn from each other if we're open to it.
So true. It's about communication and understanding.
He uses this great tree analogy to describe how we find our place in the family as we age.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says parents are like the trunk of the tree.
Providing support and stability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we become more like the branches.
Extending outwards.
Yeah. Offering shade and shelter, but also allowing the younger generation to grow taller.
Beautiful imagery. I love that.
It's about gracefully stepping back while still being a source of strength for the family.
I think that's a hard transition for some people.
It can be, but it's an important one.
Agreed.
And speaking of transitions, Rhee also talks about making peace with our past,
That's a big one.
especially those choices we might regret. He talks about how he tried to be a lenient parent,
Uh-huh.
but his kids actually felt neglected.
That's tough, but I think it happens more than we realize.
It does. And it's a good reminder that good intentions don't always equal good outcomes.
Right.
But the main takeaway is to learn from those mistakes and move forward.
Yeah, dwelling on the past doesn't help anyone.
And he really stresses that there's no such thing as a perfect parent. It's about building a strong bond based on honesty and acceptance.
I love that message.
Me too.
So true.
Okay, so let's talk about money.
Yes. Rhee has some really interesting thoughts on how our relationship with money changes as we age.
Like what?
He says we need to become seasoned bookkeepers, being mindful of our spending and embracing a simpler lifestyle, so we can be free from financial anxieties.
Exactly. He's pretty open about his own struggles with money. Like when he was younger, he wasn't always the best at managing it.
I think that's common, though.
Yeah. But he learned over time that true freedom comes from understanding your needs and being content with less.
I agree. It's not about having a ton of money.
It's about having enough and not being weighed down by financial worries.
He even mentions wanting to declutter and live more minimally.
Yeah, like a monk.
It's like a shedding of material possessions.
Right. Like as we get older, we realize that stuff doesn't really matter that much.
What matters are experiences and relationships.
Absolutely. So true.
And speaking of new chapters in life, let's talk about retirement.
Rhee has some really inspiring advice for anyone approaching or in retirement.
Okay, what's his take on it?
He says it's not just the rest of your life. It's a chance to pursue new passions and make a difference.
A second journey.
Exactly. And he's a great example of this. After he retired, he opened a clinic, founded the Family Academia Foundation, and graduated top of his class at 76.
Amazing.
So it's never too late to learn and grow.
I love that message. It's so inspiring.
It is. He also encourages us to shape how we experience life's milestones. Like for his 80th birthday, instead of a big party, he spread the celebration out over a year.
Interesting. Tell me more.
He wanted to have meaningful encounters with loved ones throughout the year.
That's really special.
It's about living intentionally and finding joy in everyday moments.
I love that approach. It's about creating memories.
Right. And it's a good reminder that we have the power to create our own happiness.
Absolutely. We're not just passengers in our own lives.
We get to choose how we experience the world.
And how we age.
Exactly.
I think one of the most helpful things Rhee talks about is how to handle the emotional and social changes of aging.
Absolutely. Like how do we stay positive and adapt as things inevitably change?
Right, like our physical abilities, for example.
He's really honest about those challenges too. Like he talks about how his eyesight isn't what it used to be. His hearing's not as sharp.
Yeah.
And it's harder to go places alone.
That makes sense, especially in his 80s.
But he doesn't dwell on those limitations. He encourages us to focus on what we can still enjoy.
So true, like finding new ways to engage with the world.
And he actually uses this funny Korean proverb.
Oh, what is it?
It goes, "Have you ever been old? I was once young."
Huh, I like that.
Right? It's like a reminder that we've experienced both sides of the coin.
And that aging is just part of life.
Exactly. And it's not about complaining. It's about acceptance and perspective.
I think that's a really healthy way to look at it.
He also gives some really practical advice on becoming a better listener.
Oh, that's so important as we get older.
It is. And he even explains why older people sometimes tend to ramble.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, me too. He says it's because our brains change as we age. Our attention might waver. We miss cues in conversations, and we go off on tangents.
Like those tree branches we talked about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not about being ashamed of those changes. It's about being aware of them.
And adapt.
Right? Like actively listening to the other person, asking clarifying questions, and showing genuine interest.
All great tips.
He also has some interesting observations about social gatherings. As we get older,
Like what?
he talks about times when he felt like people were subtly encouraging him to leave early,
Oh, I bet that happens a lot.
even though he wanted to stay. It's like that delicate balance of knowing when to step back and letting the younger generation take center stage.
So true. It applies to so many areas of life.
It does, like our careers, family dynamics, social circle.
Exactly.
And he really emphasizes making a graceful exit when the time is right.
And finding fulfillment in supporting the next generation.
I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it.
It is. It's about legacy.
And now let's talk about something really important. Finding peace with our past.
That's a big one.
It is. And Rhee really stresses the importance of forgiveness.
Forgiveness is powerful.
It is. He says we need to forgive ourselves and others who have hurt us.
Yeah, that can be really tough.
It can be. But he believes that holding on to resentment
Yeah,
only hurts us in the long run.
I agree. It eats away at you.
He actually has this 3-step process for forgiveness.
Okay, what is it?
First, you disengage from the situation. Then you try to understand the other person's perspective. And finally, you choose to release the anger and resentment.
That makes sense.
And he reminds us that forgiveness isn't about condoning the other person's actions. It's about freeing ourselves from that pain.
It's about finding peace.
And I think that's really powerful.
It is.
He also offers some words of encouragement for anyone struggling with feelings of inadequacy.
Oh, as we get older.
Yeah, like feeling like we're not as valuable or capable anymore.
I think that's a common fear.
It is. But he reminds us that aging is a universal experience, and it's okay to feel those things.
But we don't have to let those feelings define us.
Absolutely. He encourages us to embrace self-awareness and to value the experiences and knowledge we've gained.
Even if society doesn't always see it that way.
And he reminds us that we can still achieve great things, even as we get older.
Like he did.
Right. He's a great example of that.
And he talks about this despite mode.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
It's about accepting the changes that come with aging, but focusing on what we can still do and offer.
Despite those limitations.
Exactly. It's about adapting and finding new ways to contribute.
I love that.
It's empowering.
It is. It's like saying, hey, I may be getting older, but I'm not done yet.
Exactly. And Rhee's advice on finances in later life is also really helpful.
Oh, yeah? What does he say?
He talks about becoming seasoned bookkeepers,
Which means?
being mindful of our spending, embracing a simpler lifestyle if needed, and ultimately finding freedom from financial worries,
I think a lot of people worry about money as they get older.
especially with retirement and healthcare costs.
But Rhee says that much of that anxiety comes from not really understanding our needs and fearing the unknown.
Right, like we might think we need more than we actually do.
So he recommends taking stock of what truly matters to us and making conscious choices about our spending.
So it's about being intentional,
Absolutely. And he even talks about wanting to declutter and live more minimally.
like a monk.
Yeah. It's like that idea that as we get older, we realize that material possessions don't bring lasting happiness.
What matters are experiences and relationships.
Exactly. And Rhee is a big advocate for actively shaping our experiences as we age. He doesn't want us to just passively accept the changes that come with getting older,
Right, he wants us to design our lives
to reflect our values and priorities.
and to find activities and relationships that bring us joy.
I think that's so important.
It is. It's about taking ownership of our lives.
And he suggests creating our own rituals and traditions to celebrate life's milestones.
Like he did for his 80th birthday.
Yes. Instead of one big party, he spread the celebration out over a year and had meaningful encounters with loved ones throughout that time.
That's beautiful.
It's about savoring those moments
Yeah.
and appreciating the everyday joys. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, if you live to 100, you might as well be happy, I think it's helpful to distill some of Rhee's key takeaways.
Yes, a little summary for our listeners.
Okay, so here are 10 points to remember as we navigate this journey of aging.
Okay, I'm ready.
Number 1, accept aging. It's a natural process, and fighting it only makes it harder.
Good one.
Number 2, embrace despite mode. You have so much to offer regardless of the changes you experience.
I love that concept.
Number 3, discover your second journey. Retirement is a chance for new beginnings and pursuing your passions. Number 4, become a skilled listener. Cultivate empathy, engage in active listening, and truly connect with others.
So important.
Number 5, make peace with knowing less. Shift your focus from accumulating knowledge to embracing experiences and simple joys. Number 6, choose kindness. Our actions have ripple effects, so treat everyone with respect and kindness. Number 7, master your finances. Embrace a simpler lifestyle if needed and find freedom from financial worries.
Great advice.
Number 8, live intentionally. Shape your experiences, find joy in everyday moments, and create rituals and traditions that bring meaning. Number 9, nurture your relationships. Cherish those connections, make memories, and never take them for granted. And number 10, author your own story. You have the power to create your own happiness. Define what matters to you and pursue it with passion.
What a beautiful summary. It really captures the essence of Rhee's message.
It does. It's about embracing aging with intentionality and a sense of possibility.
And finding joy and fulfillment along the way.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final thought. What small act of joy or connection will you embrace today, inspired by Rhee's wisdom?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is. Remember, even small gestures can make a big difference.
In our own lives and the lives of others.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into aging and happiness.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep embracing the beauty of life's journey.